Hi, everybody. So this week we're going to talk about Chapter 7, which is all about relationships in the digital age. And I want you to think about how you define a relationship, and it can be defined in a multitude of ways. In my classroom experience, many of my students define it as interactions with other human beings, whether it be familial, co-workers, friendships, romantic relationships, acquaintanceships. But I've also had students define it as feelings of trust or feeling related to a thing. So think of the movie Her, where the primary character has feelings for his operating system, which is artificial intelligence. And in the classwork, my course version of the PowerPoint, I do have the trailer for that movie for those of you that haven't seen it yet. Your book also describes a relationship between a Japanese male and his avatar from a game, and his name was Sound 9000. And he married her online. Again, it's not a legal marriage, but to him, he has a strong relationship, strong enough that he chose to marry his avatar because he felt that Nene was what he wanted at that time. So, what you want to think about is overall, we are a social species as human beings. So, what role does technology play in building those social relationships for us? In early technology, ARPANET users reported making friends through their system. And this was one of the first, it was considered a nerd friend finder, so to speak. So how do technologies tend to connect people with similar people? So if you think of the early versions of the Web 1.0, that would be discussion boards or message boards. People would go to look for a specific topic area that they could then meet people that were like-minded. Now you can think of Facebook groups. If you're into fantasy football or some kind of fantasy sports, there are groups all over the internet where you can find like-minded people to talk to, blogs that you can join. There's all kinds of ways that you can connect. Now, we spend more time with technology, but is that really a bad thing? Historically, people do look at new technology as a negative, but is it really? Putnam would argue that technology replaces authentic social interactions, but aren't your social media contacts real people? That you're just using technology as the tool to communicate with them. Those are things you need to think about. Over time, new technologies, as I said, are often met with resistance and social concern. But yet, nearly every new communication technology that comes along has similar claims made against it. It's that, this is going to destroy society. It happened with cell phones. It happens with text messaging. It happens with Snapchat. It happened with MySpace. It happens still with Facebook. With every new iteration, those concerns continue over time. People tend to only think about how things have been done instead of how they can be done. So what's possible with this technology? We don't always think about that. And quite honestly, technology can have both negative and positive effects, and the outcome isn't about the technology itself. It's how we use the technology that leads to those outcomes. And quite frankly, these concerns are the same thing that created children's programming that we talked about in the last chapter. More time is being spent with social networking sites as web-based services, and they allow us to construct semi-public profiles, to articulate a list of social connections, and then to view other people's profiles and lists. So think of how you use Facebook. You're providing a certain level of information about yourself. You're providing a list of your social connections, so those are the groups that you belong to, the music you like, the books you like, and even your friend list. And then you use it to view other people's profiles and lists as well. So what makes a social networking site different from past technology? Will they allow for a greater scope of interactions among users? Because think about it, there's only a certain number of people that you can interact with on a day-to-day basis. But with social networking sites, it opens up your world. You can now connect with people in other states, in other countries. They provide for public displays of connection between users. So that's people can see visually who you're talking to, unless it's a private message, of course. But that has to do with your public posts that end up in news feeds. And users represent most all demographics and psychographics anymore. So why do we use social networking sites? We use them to maintain social connections, especially with our friends and family that are far away. Right now, I have a cousin who's on deployment. The best way to keep in contact with her is through text messaging. We can also do Facebook, but she has limited availability at times to Facebook depending on where she is on her deployment. So that's one way. I have family in other states that I can stay in contact with more easily because of social networking sites. It helps build closer social connections, and users of social networking sites have been found to be less socially isolated than it was feared that they would become. You know, it's that fear of you're never going to interact with real people if you're only talking to people online, and that's just not true. It is a tool to augment interpersonal communication, not completely remove it from our lives. So how is your social networking profile perceived? Well, it can be a couple different ways. First, we have the Goldilocks effect, which is the number of friends you have online can impact how folks see you offline. So if you have a ton of friends, you can be seen as not being authentic, like you're a friend hoarder is what one of my friends call it. It seems that about 300 to 500 friends is the just right. You don't generally get judged too harshly if you have that focus of friends. But if you have too few friends, say you have 100 friends or less, people are going to be a little leery. Then there's also context collapse, which oftentimes the information you post to your profile can be viewed by unexpected audiences. Someone that you don't intend to see the information can. And that just depends on how things are set up in the social networking site, your privacy settings, and that sort of thing. So what you do online can influence how you're seen in an offline setting as well. Deception is another big topic when it comes to social networking sites. Online communication technologies offer certain affordances that aren't possible in person. So you want to think of what those might be. Research suggests that these deceptions are more similar to impression management. So you're trying to put your best foot forward. You're trying to present yourself in the best light online. One reason is that when we anticipate meeting each other, we don't want to fix the damage with big lies. So you're actually more careful about what you say. You know, you might tell small lies, like on dating sites, you might shave 15 pounds off your weight, or you might add an inch or two to your height. But if you're 5'2", you're not going to say you're 6'2", because when you meet that person in person, it's going to be obvious that you're a foot shorter than you said. And that's a lie that's a big lie. So you might tell white lies online, but the level of deception actually isn't much different from the lies we tell in person, is what the research shows. You'll want to understand what catfishing is. There is a blurb in there on Manti Te'o and his experience with being catfished. And then you want to think about presence. Using computer-mediated communication to engage the internet as a social space, we must feel telepresent in that space in order to feel social presence. So that can happen on a continuum. Sometimes you feel more present than others. It's a psychological state. So do you think about the fact that you're using technology to communicate with someone, or Have you blocked it out and you're not really thinking about it? You're just having a conversation. It feels as if there's not that wall. And it's dynamic. It changes at any given moment. You can remember, like even recording this speech, sometimes I forget that I have a camera on me. And then I see the camera and then I realize, oh yeah, I'm not just talking to a classroom of students, I am talking to a camera. So the content, the channel, and the user can equal that sense of telepresence. So how present are you? You want to understand the media equation, which Reeves and Nass in 1996 argue that people approach media as if it were real. As an example, we cry during sad movies even though we know they're fake. We talk to computers when they aren't working properly. I've been talking to mine a lot since I've been having so many issues with recording your lectures. We use interpersonal communication norms even when we are interfacing with technology. So the experience really isn't that different between the two. So, in summary, you want to recognize, hopefully by the end of all of this, you'll recognize the communication technology is often used for interpersonal communication. It's a tool for communication. And sometimes we even communicate with technology as if it were human. So maybe the movie Her really isn't that far-fetched. And there's no reason to assume that online relationships are less than offline ones, as they all exist in our real social world. So what's real for me is real for me. Have a great week.